So we have to start a program called Finance Plus, and the plus is really knowledge. This has become a very, very important issue for the bank. So and that's why in my title, the president added the word knowledge management. I hope I'm able to meet his expectation. I'm trying very hard. Help me. But the point is, will be very critical in order to turn this knowledge into a knowledge economy. It's a difficult job, but we are working at this moment. We hope to do it more on this. And I personally believe it is even more needed in areas like green growth. In how to really turn this into a economy that would help the countries in future. And we don't seem to know enough about that. Therefore, yesterday when I was attending this Low Carbon Asia Research Network, Low CarNet, Professor Nishioka, I felt good that at least there have been attempts to integrate the world's institutions who are working on this, Asian institutions working on this. And if we can get all of those put together, get our thoughts, I think we'll be able to do a better job together. And I'm really happy about that. Similar attempt has been done by the ISAP Ministry of Environment, also on the Adaptation Network, which we are also participating. I'm finding things extremely very helpful. To still remain on time, we've got about a few more minutes, I'd like to conclude by saying that our reality is that the traditional economic development planning must evolve to an economic approach that gives attention to sustainable growth. Now, this has been said many times. I think this time it's got to be done differently with the Sustainable Development Goals, which is yet to be defined according to Rio. But I think there are a few things that you can say very much on this. It must be growth that draws everyone into the equation. It must be environmentally sound, and it must take into account the climate change, which often in the past hadn't been taken that much, and takes us to the path of really a low carbon growth in the future. And it is through these that we think we'll be able to protect and sustain our economic growth. We believe Asia needs a new growth path, like the Pachauri mentioned. If you're in the wrong direction, no matter how fast you move, it is not the model. I think the Asian countries are realizing this. It is a time to help them. It's a time to have dialogue with them. And therefore, a forum like this is extremely, extremely helpful. And congratulations to IJS for having like this one. Thank you very much.
ロハニ先生、ありがとうございました。
Thank you, Dr. Rouhani. We continue to see strong growth in Asia, but at the same time, there is growing gaps and disparities, and there seems to be a lot of pressure on environment. Inclusive growth, green growth, knowledge-led growth are much needed. For green growth in particular, countries need to find out their path, taking into consideration their particular circumstances. Environment and growth have to be made compatible during this process. Low carbon, and this will lead to the strength in trying to overcome the economic crisis. Clean energy, transportation sector, forest, ocean, and other natural resources and adaptation measures to address climate change are just some of the points that he's touched upon. Low interest rate financing and conditional financing, conditionality financing will be a key. Financing with conditionality will be a key, and that, I believe, is the role expected of public financial institutions. Knowledge-led growth is important, he said. Finance Plus is how ADB looks at this issue. And this is perhaps one of the areas where we need to see more activities. On a related note, setting target and objectives will be a key in Rio Plus 20. Sustainable Growth Target, SDGs, were agreed upon there was an agreement to formulate SDGs. So we need to have optimal and appropriate targets so that we can all work towards the established targets. Dr. Rouhani, thank you very much for your remarks. So without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Ishii, Deputy Vice Minister of Finance for International Affairs, to discuss ways to and challenges to promote the green economy in Asia based on the two keynote speeches that, as I said at the outset. Soon she will be assuming the role of CEO of JEF, the Global Environment Facility.
Everybody, thank you, Professor Hamanaka and Ajis, to have me here. I am honored to have a few words after Dr. Pachauri and Dr. Rouhani, such an iconic figures and a leader in this community. I just want to make 2 points in my 5 minutes. The first, I want to make a few words about how I see the Rio Plus 20. The second, I want to talk a little bit about what the role the JEF or ADB or those financial institutions should play in that perspective. Let me start with my take of Rio Plus 20. I spent a few days there and I witnessed 2 very different planets there. In the very dark and spacious and very well air-conditioned boardroom, tons of government officials were stuck and spent a lot of time to negotiate the agreement. Well, it produced some good results like a path towards SDG, but I can tell you the entire process is very, very frustrating and with a lot of suspicions and political rhetoric. However, outside that boardroom, and less air-conditioned and quite hot and heated, there are a lot of interesting activities and events and workshops and ongoing. I was lucky to shop some of them, and I can tell you that there is a kind of emerging consensus or emerging, I wouldn't say agreement, but a clear consensus among those people that environment needs development, development needs environment, and there is no kind of opposition between these two. It's more like a codependent. Let me tell you just 2 examples that the Natural Capital Declaration was launched. Bindo already mentioned a lot about the importance of incorporating this concept of natural capital into the economic decision making. But as you may know, there is a declaration launched and signed already by more than 50 governments, more than 60 governments, more than 50 large business, and 17 NGOs and others. So there is a clear recognition and also political will to take actions that on how to incorporate value of the natural capital into everyday decision making. The second example may be that the Rio Plus 20 hosted there is a event, the Corporate Sustainability Forum. And this is the largest forum ever hosted in the corporate sector. And a lot of interesting ideas and coalition initiatives are popping up from that forum. Say that Sabalo Stock Exchange came together and agreed on that and how to identify the green corporate, green business. Also a city coalitions that how to run that best practice among cities, so that while the central government are busy negotiating the document, a lot of interesting activities and initiatives are already taking place outside the government negotiation.